So this is a 1,000-litre compost tea brewer made in a clean shuttle. We need to have it totally clean, and we've had this one stored with just clean water in it, no chemical residue, because we don't want that to affect our microbial populations that we're trying to brew in here. Obviously we need to make sure that the tap actually works as well. Some old second-hand shuttles, the tap doesn't work, and so it won't seal in water, and we don't want to have leakages happening. So make sure that's all okay. And all we've done here is we've cut the top out of the shuttle so that the opening is exposed. We've put this bit of old second-hand wood on here and attached an air blower. So this air blower is just blowing air throughout this transparent silicone hose through a couple of elbows and into some PVC tubing. So if we disconnect this, we can see the air's just blowing through there, and the air has stopped blowing through the compost tea. Okay, so when we're actually making the brewer, we need to cut the PVC that fits in the bottom of the tank to the right size, so that when we put a stopper on the end of it, it's going to fit in the inside of the tap hole and actually block that off. And we've drilled holes in the PVC at a 45-degree angle and about an inch apart, so that when the bubbles come out, it comes out in a nice U-shaped action, and we get the air circulating through there. So the main thing to have access to is a compost tea brewing bag. So this is a micron filter mesh that's been sewn up into a bag shape, and I've just attached these eyelets on here. You can buy these at a hardware store and actually put these in yourself. And so we have these hooks that are inside here to actually dangle the compost, and the compost goes in there and then makes the compost tea. So we fill it up with our compost. So we're aiming to put about 5 kilos in there for this amount of liquid. So just as a demonstration, we've got the compost in there. Goes into the compost tea. Hook it onto the eyelets. And we need to make sure that we have the compost tea bag at a level where it's not going to sit in the water and the material's not going to come out of the bag and enter into our liquid, because all the little fine bits that are in here in the compost, we don't want it to block up our sprayer when we're putting it out. So we need to keep the compost in the bag and the water on the outside. So another key device that you might need when you're making compost tea is a dissolved oxygen meter. So if we turn it on, most dissolved oxygen meters need to be calibrated according to the outside temperature and temperature of the water that it's going into. So we just give that time to calibrate. So we've just calibrated the dissolved oxygen meter, and it's reading about 100% dissolved oxygen content. So when we put it into the compost tea, we want to be able to put it into our brewer and dangle it around in each corner and just monitor that dissolved oxygen content. So I've just converted the reading to parts per million, and we're actually getting a reading of around 9 parts per million. So we can test to see that it's getting oxygenated quite well. We don't want to let the compost tea drop below about 6 parts per million. Ideally, I like to keep it around 8, but 6 parts per million below that is going to kill our microbes, and it's going to have a potential to develop anaerobic pathogens and things that we don't want to have in our system. So that's quite good. I'm happy with that. So I'll take that out. Now, the main component of the compost tea is obviously derived from the quality of the compost that we have started off with. I made this compost at home, and we've used about 5 kilos to make 500 litres, 10 kilos in about 1,000 litres of compost tea. And this compost, when we looked at it underneath the microscope, has all the materials that we need to make a really good compost. So it's got really good active bacteria, it's got nematodes, it's got protozoa, it's got fungi, and it's full of all that life that we want to impart into the compost tea. If we don't have a good quality compost to begin with, then we're not going to be able to make a great quality compost tea, because what we start with in the compost, we can't actually add that in later. And people have asked me about adding foods to the compost tea as it's going, and I don't tend to do that, because I think that the foods that we add at the beginning should be enough to sustain the populations throughout. And we keep monitoring the compost tea every couple of hours to see that the dissolved oxygen content is good and that the populations are growing. And we'll typically start to develop fungal populations around the longer time mark, so about 36 hours onwards. 40 hours, and this compost tea is brewed for almost 50 hours now, so it's been quite a long process. But we are in a cooler temperature here, and we've just entered winter, so the water temperature is quite cool. So you may need to brew for longer in order to get the desired populations of the organisms that you need. Once we finish making the compost tea, we take our compost tea bag out. So we'll drain all that liquid off. And that compost material can actually go out onto the garden, or it can go back into another active pile that you might have going. And we can actually stop the brewer at this point. Make sure it doesn't fall off. Okay, so once we've finished the brewing process, as you can see, there's lots of scum and fine particles of some of the material that's come out of the compost that's stuck on the side. And if we don't clean down the brewer properly when we're finished, we'll end up with a sort of microfilm on the inside of the tank that will then contaminate our brews for future purposes. So once we've drained all the liquid out of here, we want to get something quite sturdy like a broom or a long-handled brush that we can actually clean off the sides with, and we might actually use a light bleach solution to sterilise that and make sure it's clean, and then we'll run through clean water afterwards. And the beauty of having the air pump rather than a water pump that's actually pumping the compost tea through a machine is that this pump is not coming in contact with any of the microorganisms. And so the only parts that we need to clean is obviously the tank and any hoses that we use, and just the PVC where it's come in contact with the actual solution. So clean all that out and have it all clean and ready for the next time that we brew.